What's up, Brew Crew? Opie here. Welcome back to my Brew City Garden. So it's almost time to start the conditioning process, and I'm about ready to set my bales up and get them put out in the garden where I want them for the season. But there's a couple of things that I need to keep in mind, and we're going to go over that right now. So as you can see, I've got my bales stacked up here in the driveway. They've been here for a couple of weeks. I've got them covered up with a tarp because the weather has been less than cooperative. We just had literally like 4 inches of snow over the weekend. So getting out into the garden and getting things prepped has been, it's just been a no-go. It's just not happening. I'm expecting rain for the next few days. So I would really like to get these bales placed out into the garden, and we're gonna let Mother Nature take care of the first part of conditioning. For the first few days, all you're gonna do is get your bales wet and make sure that they're thoroughly soaked. So if Mother Nature is gonna help me with that, absolutely, that's what we're gonna do. There are a few things though to remember when you're setting up your bales, just a couple of things to keep in mind. Well, let's talk about that now. So as far as the bales go themselves, there's a certain way that you want to try to position your bales, and I'll show you right now. I'll pull this bale down. So as we take a closer look at this bale, we can see that it's tied up with 2 strings of jute twine. Now these strings, you're going to want these facing the sides. You don't want to plant with the strings up if you can help it. I know in some bales, sometimes you don't really have a choice, but for the most part, you want these strings on the side. That's just gonna help keep you from breaking these strings. It's gonna make them easier to repair if they happen to break on you. So just keep that in mind. Now, which side do we want facing up? Well, let's take a look at this. So if you look at this side of the bale, you see it's kind of matted. It looks like it's just folded over, and there's no real order to it. So let's turn it over. Now on this side, you can see that it looks like the straw has just been cut flush, so it's not matted over. It looks like it's cut. And this essentially is the side that you want facing up. And what that's going to do, it's going to help the conditioning fertilizer to penetrate the bale, and it just makes it easier for the water to penetrate the bale to facilitate the conditioning process. Now, if you've already set your bales up and you're just now realizing, oops, I put this side down, well, don't worry about it. It's still gonna work. It's just that this side will probably make it a little bit easier for those nutrients and water to penetrate. But if you've already started conditioning on a different side, don't worry about it. Just keep it in mind for next year. Now, another thing you're gonna wanna consider, especially if this is the first time you set up your bale garden, is the actual position of your garden. If at all possible, you want the rows to be facing north and south. And what that's going to do is it's going to give you better coverage as the sun comes up in the east, over, and sets into the west. So you're going to get better coverage throughout the day if you have your bale set up north to south. Now, I understand some people's garden layouts is just not going to work that way with the property that they have, or perhaps you've got trees in the way that create a shade type environment. So it's something to keep in mind. It's not an absolute necessity, but it will help as far as sun coverage throughout the day. Now, one more thing that you want to keep in mind before you put your bales out. If you're going to put your bales on an established lawn or another area where weeds could possibly come up and start growing into the bales, what you're going to want to do is put down a weed mat or a weed guard of some sort. And that's just going to prevent, as I said, the grass or other weeds beginning to grow up into the bales. Of course, they're gonna love that fresh new soil, and they will just grow straight up through the bales. You don't want that to happen, so put down some sort of weed guard or weed matting. Really doesn't matter what kind you use, as long as it's gonna stop any growth from coming up through it. Now, I use some old tarps, some industrial tarps that were discarded at the company that I work at, and I just cut them down and repurposed them. And this is the third year I have used these. They hold up extremely well. So if you use your imagination and take a look at the resources you have nearby, chances are you can find something similar to this, or just ask around. There's plenty of ways to do this, whether it's even a piece of wood, garbage bags. I would say that cardboard would work just fine, but you'd probably have to replace it yearly. But these tarps work great, and they'll do a very good job of keeping those weeds from coming up through the bales. All right, so now that we know which side of the bale should go up, we have the direction and the layout of our garden figured out. We've got our weed mat, our weed guard laid down. Now it's time to get the bales set up, and hopefully we can get it all out before the rain, and we'll be in good shape. All right, guys, let's get these bales out here. All right, guys, so there it is. It took me about 20 minutes to set all these bales up. It really couldn't be much easier than that. I still have 8 bales left that I'm gonna go ahead and tarp up and cover them again because I'm not quite sure where I'm gonna put them yet. But these bales are down and just in time because I'm starting to feel raindrops right now. So Mother Nature's gonna help us along. If it's not gonna rain in your area, just make sure for the first 3 days or so, come along and soak your bales. So you just wanna add water until you see the water flowing out through the bottoms of the bales. And after about 3 days, we can begin the conditioning process. Now, it should go without saying that if you want to put your bales out a month ahead of time or 2 months ahead of time and just let nature do her thing and rain on the bales, I wouldn't recommend conditioning your bales 2 months ahead of time, but to put them out and let them start to get weathered and waterlogged is going to be perfectly fine. All right, guys, hey, make sure you stay tuned because the conditioning process is coming up in just a couple of days. We're going to go through the whole thing. Hey, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button down there and give me a thumbs up if you appreciate this content, and share it with a friend because that's going to help me out a lot. Now, if you want to keep up with the Brew City Gardener or keep up with the straw bale gardening community as a whole, you can find me at Facebook at Brew City Gardener, and you can find our Facebook community at the Global Straw Bale Gardeners Collective. We're really starting to get a lot of people in there now, so I think this summer, this growing season, it's gonna get real good. You don't want to miss that, so go check it out. All right, the rain's coming. Stay tuned, guys. We'll see you.